Hello, and welcome to the Angus and Pete Show. Views and opinions are strictly those of the presenters and their guests and should not be taken as advice. Goodness knows, we're not qualified to advise you about anything. Side effects may include mild amusement and occasional enlightenment with feelings of embarrassment, apathy, disappointment, and pity.
Welcome to episode 29. I'm Angus Peacey.
And I'm Pete Brown, and we are the Angus and Pete Show.
A place where you can listen to two guys chatting about the riveting world of customer engagement.
You know, customer engagement, aka contact centre, call centre, customer service, customer experience, CX, or whatever else you're calling it this week.
And if you want to find out more about us, then check us out on LinkedIn.
We always start with a postbag, Angus. What have we got in it this week?
Two really interesting ones, actually. Ken from Norfolk dropped us a line. He said that was an interesting conversation with Vinay Palmer. As a consumer, I strongly agree with the fact that inconsistency in customer interactions erodes trust.
Mm-hmm.
He said, my experience indicates that outsourcing introduces inconsistency.
Ooh, controversial.
He did preface that, particularly looking at Virgin Media O2 in the UK. So he's clearly got a bugbear there.
Ooh, disgruntled consumer.
Bit like you today in the heat.
Do you know what, Angus? I'm not in a good mood today. I'm a bit grumpy, so bear that in mind. Treat me gently.
I will poke the bear. Much more fun. He said, any thoughts on getting high quality across complex customer service landscapes?
That sounds like a challenge, Ken.
That's really difficult, trying to guarantee high quality across that environment. So I think we'll have to see what we can come up with on that one.
Yeah, we'll have a think about that.
The second one was Shiv from Antwerp. He said, I'd like you guys to look at topical stuff in the customer experience and contact center news. Not just to review stories, but biting judgment and unpopular opinion.
Blimey. That sounds like a challenge too, doesn't it?
We've got to give it a go.
No time like the present, Angus. So, Shiv from Antwerp, we've taken you seriously, and what we've done is had a quick trawl through our news feed, and we've selected 3 articles. They all appeared in various online publications on the 10th of June, and they sort of follow a humans versus AI theme. So, we thought we'd have a chat about those articles and see where it takes us. Angus, what story is first up?
I think the first thing I want to say is that if you're listening to this and hoping that we are going to regurgitate any vendor bullshit and announcements, that's not what we're going to do.
No, we're not. These are real newsworthy stories, not marketing clickbait.
No. I think things to make you think. So they all came out on the 10th of June. The first one was a news article from Fast Company in the States. It was headlined, AI assistants still need a human touch.
And this article was written by a guy called Alexander Kosavan.
We'll put the link in to the article in the show notes as well for those people who want to go and read it. They were talking about AI being personal and personalization.
And it was specifically about AI assistants, right?
Yeah.
I think most of us using AI are using it as an assistant. We're using it to answer questions. We're using it to get stuff done more efficiently and more effectively.
He points out AI assistants have been around for quite a while. They're not new. And some of you that might be of the more experienced generation will remember Clippy.
Clippy the paperclip.
That bloody paperclip that used to interrupt you the whole time. What is important about him is why he failed.
Because he was bloody annoying.
Bloody annoying, but also he's bloody useless. He didn't understand any context. So he gave the same advice all the time, but he normally gave it at exactly the wrong time, and he didn't care what you were or weren't doing. That's one forward to today. If you think about Alexa, you think about Siri, they're just as rigid. If you don't speak to them in the right way, it doesn't understand you. So they can be hassles more than help.
Right.
And I think the core problem to this is AI still struggles to understand what users actually want. What is the thinking behind the question?
I get the feeling that the AI assistants of today are trying to learn, whereas Clippy was the thing that used to knock on the screen, didn't it, when it thought you weren't paying attention to it.
If I remember correctly, if you were working in Word and you decided to go and look at a news article or do some research, but you weren't working in Office at that point in time, the bloody thing would knock on the screen, try and get your attention the whole time.
Back in the days when screens were made of glass.
Yeah. No, long time, and they were a lot bigger than they are now.
Just a point I want to make when it comes to irritating. One of the reasons I'm in a bad mood is I spent quite a lot of time this morning working on a spreadsheet in Office 365, and I've noticed now that Copilot is pervasive. What it does is when you highlight a cell, it puts up a tiny little Copilot button that you can use. And guess where it is? Guess where it sits? It sits right on top of the cell that you're working on.
That's personalization.
It's not personalisation, Angus. It is bloody annoying, is what it is. So even then, with all of this stuff, people aren't really thinking this through. I can only assume that the developer who thought that was a good idea has never used a spreadsheet in his life.
I mean, that's interesting because the article says AI should become more human-centric. And I'm not convinced about this, to be honest. Because it's not just being human-centric, it's got to be able to remember the context. That's the big thing. If it can remember context, it becomes useful.
Yeah.
The article argues that it needs to become emotionally aware. Really? I don't think so. There's no emotion required where I'm busy using AI to do some research and summarize some long documents. What he says is that AI needs some personality. I don't think AI needs personality, but I think where there's context, then everybody will benefit if the technology recognizes that and adjusts to that context.
When you give things that aren't human emotions and empathy, they start to become caricatures of themselves. And I'm going to go back to Clippy again. The ultimate caricature. I think it's creepy and patronising. At the very least, you should be able to turn the personality up and down with some sort of slider. Sometimes you might want a little bit of a virtual hug. Are you all right, hun? Call me. But no, I don't need that. I certainly don't bloody need it today, Angus. I'm in a bad mood. I just want it black and white, straight up and down. Meat and two veg, no messing about.
So all you want is something that's simple, fast. It's a useful tool. You don't want something that's trying to be your mate.
Exactly. When you've got a human assistant, you have to be nice to them. You have to think about stuff. You have to think about HR policies and all that. I don't want to be messing about with that with AI. It's there to be used and abused, and that's what I want to do. So I don't want it to be nice to me. I just want it to do what I want.
So you don't want Clippy 2.0 then?
I don't want Clippy 2. Anything. I want Clippy to never come back.
All you want out of it is a simple tool that saves you time, reduces complexity, it makes it simple for you, and it fits into what you're working on in any given day.
Yeah.
I don't buy the argument that it's got to be personalized. I think it's got to understand context. Personalization, no. I do not want to be greeted by an AI agent when I log on to my laptop in the morning going, what to do today?
It is too much. And I'm not speaking for everyone, and I'm not speaking for me on another day, but right now, it's just too much. I don't want anyone to be nice to me at the moment. I'm not feeling the love, and I certainly don't want some patronising AI chat GPT powered thing pissing me off any more than I am already.
If you're listening to this at the moment in the UK, where we are, it's about 29, 30 degrees. If you listen to Pete and most of the other English people that I've spoken to today, you'd swear it was 57 and they were melting.
If we can just crack on, Angus, I know how hot it is. If we can just crack on. You can have too much personalisation. Human beings can irritate human beings. It's not just the preserve of AI. I think AI is best serving when it comes to tailoring content, not over-personalising the way that it delivers it.
So it's an interesting segue, I think, into the second article, which was Gartner. And they came out with an article that it was really short to the point, but they said they're predicting that 50% of organizations will abandon plans to reduce customer service workforce due to AI. That's interesting because that cuts 90 degrees across all the marketing fluff that we're getting out in the industry at the moment.
If you listen to some of our previous episodes about AI, there's room to question the whole thing in terms of the hype that's coming out of the vendors, in terms of the ease with which it can be implemented, effort versus reward, just the sheer cost of the thing in financial terms. And we're all sitting there looking at each other, wondering when this stuff is gonna deliver. And well, Gartner just said, not as soon as we thought.
No. This was done in March 2025, and they surveyed a fairly large sample size of 163 people, but in the grand scheme of things, that's quite small.
Yeah.
They said by 2027, half of the companies that wanted to reduce their service teams will abandon that plan. Right. So 50% change in direction, but They said 95% of the leaders that they interviewed say that they will keep human agents, but they will focus on defining how AI supports them, not replaces them. That kind of lines up what we've been saying, what we're seeing. People are focusing internally first, and they're looking at how can they help agents in what is a really shitty job.
Yeah, and there's an interesting spin on that. In this article, Gartner say that organisations should clearly define AI's role and prioritise its strategic objectives and use that to determine the roles of human agents moving forward. To be fair to Gartner, I don't think they've ever said that AI was gonna replace human beings in a customer service environment, but it's good to see them coming out with it.
If you go back to that first CX Insider we did with Steve Blood, ex-Gartner analyst, one of the points he made was that Gartner analysts are talking to customers and asking these questions all the time. So this is probably the most accurate playback of what customers are doing instead of the marketing waffle that we see.
It also supports something that Vinay said in episode 28. Remember we were talking about the boardroom, and I think you asked a question about AI. What does that mean in the boardroom right now? And I think he said something like, it requires an experimental approach. Boards like certainty. Boards want to know, here's the project, this is what it's going to deliver. Go and do it. Don't mess it up. Move on to the next one. AI is not there. And this article actually confirms that. Unless you've got an entrepreneurial approach to this, you're prepared to take risks, experiment, start small, build it up, then you're going to struggle.
They say that the next wave of best practice is going to be digital first. Listen to the phrase that we're hearing from Gartner now. I think we've been saying this for 2 and a bit years on odd speaking occasions.
Yep. Digital
first, but not digital only.
What I find amusing is that digital first has now become wedded to AI. Well, let's just go back 3 or 4 years before ChatGPT was a thing. Digital first back then was the digital front door, bringing those digital channels together without AI, using automation when it's appropriate, and handing off to human agents when not. Most organisations have not finished their digital first story yet. You don't need AI to go digital first. What you need is a very clear understanding of your customer journeys. Going back to what Vinay said last week, a very clear idea of what those touch points are. Apply the right tech, the right channels to the right place. You don't need AI to do that. In fact, if you're not very careful, AI and the complications of it and the costs of it may stop you doing the basics. If you convince yourself that AI is a requirement for digital first, it is not.
No, I think your digital journeys are the foundation on which you build the rest. If you haven't got that sorted, you're knackered. So do that first.
You need digital first to get the best out of AI. Don't put the cart before the horse.
And I think, human agents are absolutely critical to this because, just as you said, AI isn't a cure-all. It's not going to fix everything. But still, the best model is AI plus human, because human beings bring empathy. They bring the ability to read the person from that perspective, and they personalize it by default. So a hybrid model is actually much more efficient because then with the help of AI, you can do it fast, you can do it accurately, and you can bring the empathy level in. So I think agents are strategic roles. They're not going to get phased out. They're going to become more important over time.
Yeah, which we've been saying, and this just underscores that, I think.
Let's look at the alternative. Will AI eventually take over? So another school of thoughts. Is this just a temporary pause? A lot of organizations, the pendulum swung to go all AI. They're learning those lessons, bringing that back to human agents. Is that permanent, or is it just a short-term adjustment? I think the short-term might be longer than you think, but I think it will be a blip. The business is always going to be wanting to take cost out. So there's one compelling pressure that's going to be there. The other one is AI is getting better all the time. And for a lot of people right now, AI is already good enough.
Yeah.
Once it gets better and they've got to tune out it being creepy, at some point you're going to be able to replace bums on seats. So maybe hybrid is just a step, not the end goal. I think the jury's still out on this one.
So short term, human agents are here to stay.
Yep.
I think AI is being used to attempt to do a better job of automating what we're already automating. We've said that before. Are we actually combining AI and human services? I'm not so sure. I think we're trying to. I think they're a pilot. I'm not sure it's being done at scale at the moment. I don't know.
I think it's
Somebody tell me if it is.
It's all internal at the moment. I actually think if you really look under the hood, there's a lot of AI being deployed, maybe to use your term, pilot, all internally focused, because I think most businesses are still absolutely petrified of letting an AI agent loose on their customer.
You've also got to evolve your thinking and working practices as a business.
Change is going to accelerate. I think that we can be pretty sure about. Talking about humans and thinking about the traditional contact centers, the third piece was on customerthink.com. They were talking about agents specifically, and they said, how do we fix the problem of high agent turnover in contact centers?
And that was an article that was written by Wailios Aaron Batsis. I hope I said your name right, Wailios. If I didn't, then feel free to give me hell on LinkedIn.
This article goes back to a topic that we all know about. It doesn't get talked about enough. Many contact centers are struggling with high staff turnovers. And in the article, they called it out. They said 50% to 100% of turnover in 12 months. These guys are in the States. It must be a shitty place to work, because in the UK, it's not that high.
And Wailios, who wrote this article, he comes from the BPO industry. He's been in it for 24 years. So he knows what large operations look like. He knows what large communities of agents look like, and he knows what churn looks like.
And he does a really good job of positioning what it's like to work in a contact center.
He says in the article, a guy called Amas Tenumar, who is a customer experience evangelist from the US, said, 1, federal prisoners get more freedom than most call center agents in terms of lunch breaks and whatnot. Number 2, every word that you say is used against you. That's the way it feels. And that's the way it is in a lot of cases. And 3, the goal is to, erase your individuality. We keep talking about consistency from a customer service perspective. We don't really think about it from an individual perspective. And erasing someone's individuality is one of the foundation stones of torture. So those 3 things alone make it a pretty shitty place to work.
It's obvious that leads to burnout, morale problems, and a constant hiring cycle. So he proposes a totally different model, which I actually think has got legs. Instead of relying on traditional in-office full-time agents, move to an entirely freelance space, but essentially pay them on outcomes. Pay them by number of successful calls or first contact resolution. You decide which metric you want to use. But he comes up with a couple of reasons why this will work better. 1, agents can work from anywhere. That gives businesses access to a much bigger, broader talent pool.
We've proven that's workable. The whole pandemic, which we don't talk about anymore, proved that working from home, remote work thing for contact center agents is absolutely workable.
And part 2 of that is flexibility. People can choose when they work, ideal for people that are caregivers or those people that have got other responsibilities. So automatically you're now giving people control over their own lives. So tick the box on those 2. The other one was a surprise to me, is that agents pick which brands they care about, which ones they want to work for. That'll make them more motivated, more authentic around it. So that they've got choice over that. And then just make all the pay performance-based. So instead of a flat salary, get them paid for each resolved issue. That would drive quality and speed naturally at an individual level.
It would. Those 4 things are possible now. If you think about some of the more sophisticated workforce management, workforce optimization platforms, they're not far off this. Flexible hours, being able to trade shifts, being able to hop on and hop off tactically. The wherewithal's there to do it. So it's got to be a business culture that stops it actually happening.
There are also risks around it. So keeping consistency around that from a service quality brand voice. When agents are working independently, is that riskier? Data security. He says letting people work from home on their own devices might make it more difficult to protect customer data and meet compliance. I don't think that's much of a problem anymore. I think the tech is there to solve it. You just have to choose to do it.
It's an attractive model, and really it works at its best when it's quite granular. You could have the ability to hop on, do an hour, do 15 minutes, and hop off again. How about if you took it a stage further and gave the agents an app and gave the call centre managers an app, Uber styly, and when the contact centre managers needed agents, they go out there, and the price paid is basically on a supply and demand basis.
So you want surge pricing.
Well,
when you're in the shit, you're prepared to pay slightly more.
Yeah. So that would absolutely focus people on their cost to serve and their business case. But why not Uber agents? You heard it here first.
The whole premise of this piece is interesting. And I think what's blocking it is just culture. I think if you really look at it, it might have legs.
So we've had our AI assistants still need the human touch story. And we've had Gartner predicting that 50% of organisations that were going to use AI to reduce headcount are now parking those projects, certainly for the short to medium term. And we've just spoken about how we might address the churn problem with really significant cultural and structural change around the hows, whys and wheres of agents' working environment and how they're actually employed. I'm hoping, Shiv, that we were irreverent enough for you and opinionated enough. Angus, can we bundle all this up into some takeaways? This rambling, incoherent journey through these three stories. Can we put some takeaways around it?
We can have a go. Number one, the limitations with AI today still mean that a human-centric approach is needed. AI still struggles with context. It's got no emotional intelligence, and personalization can be creepy.
And whilst the introduction of AI led everyone to run full speed towards the agentless customer service thing, it seems that, according to Gartner at least, and according to anyone who's paying attention, I think, that a significant number of organisations are thinking again about that, and even putting those things on ice. They're taking a step back. AI is not a panacea. Technology never is. The human touch remains. Again, going back to Vinay last week, it's all about tech versus trust. And if you're a business and you're delivering service, trust comes first. If you can't deliver trust through technology, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Well, if you don't have trust, there's nobody to deliver to.
There you go.
The other thing was that the hybrid model, combining AI with humans, looks to be like the most effective way of doing this and delivering a good customer experience. So AI is a complement, not a replacement. And the other thing that came out is digital first, not digital only approach gets AI and humans working together. Digital first, you've got to get that digital platform in place so that you can interact everywhere as your first step.
And all your journeys, make sure you understand them all, what digital channels you apply, when you go to a human being, how you manage that thing. And if you haven't got that sorted out, you really need to think about whether you should implement AI, because what we've also said is AI implemented in silos tactically isn't viable.
No.
So you've got to be looking at the broader picture.
The final one is that today's traditional contact center staffing model is flawed. Turnover, shitty place to work, lack of freedom, constant management and scrutiny, and you're not allowed to be an individual in that is an issue, and it's expensive. Have a look at changing your business culture potentially, and ramping the freelancing environment might give you some real benefits. And if you're not going to go all the way to freelance, then really focus on opening up that hybrid working model so that people have got that flexibility, and maybe you'll find the churn that comes down.
And for those people out there who think, well, hang on a minute, freelancers, they hop in, they hop off. Where am I going to get my consistency from? Where am I going to get my depth of knowledge from? Well, actually, the answer is AI. That's the classic example. So I think what we've just done, Angus, is actually joined these three apparently disparate stories up with quite a nice thread.
So if you're listening and you come up with any stories that you think are really interesting, then drop us a message.
Let us know whether you think this format works. This picking some stories and talking about them.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, Angus. It was a bit different. And we're going to be back next time with episode 30.
In the meantime, follow the Angus and Pete Show page on LinkedIn for news and notifications. Please message us directly to tell us what you want us to talk about, how we're doing, and keep that post bag bulging, please.
You know the show's available on all your favourite podcast platforms, so listen, like, subscribe, and please share and repost and help us to spread the word and get the message out there. Angus, I know what you're going to say next. I know you're going to say, before we go, it's Joke of the Week time. I'm not in the mood to do jokes this week. What I want to do is go back to Clippy and just remind everyone how appallingly shit he really was.
Bit of history lesson again. You like history lessons.
I've got a question for you. What year was Clippy introduced?
This one I can answer because I actually remember it really clearly. Because I was working in the Microsoft ecosystem at that time. So 1997 is my final answer on that one.
Is a correct answer as well. What gender do we think Clippy is? I mean, I think he's male. It's difficult to tell with a paperclip, to be honest with you. But I think he's male.
Look, irritating, useless.
Yeah.
Pops up at the wrong time.
Yeah.
I think there might be a demographic of our listeners that will say he's definitely male.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say any more on that one.
We're not going to
get
get
into trouble
there because there's an HR case just waiting to happen there. Yeah. Did you know that this is for the technical people, really, because no one cares, but the technical people will. Clippy was not a feature of the Windows operating system. He was very specifically a feature of the Office application suite. Well, that's certainly what the operating system guys were saying to the Office development guys when they realised how crap it was.
Yeah, was there a bit of reallocation of glory going on in that one?
What glory? I don't think there was any glory. I think it was all gloryless. and we know why he was hated so much, don't we? He was invasive. That knocking on the screen thing with your idle. I mean, serving absolutely no purpose but to piss you off and interrupt your real life. What were you thinking, Microsoft?
I mean, all you did when you saw this bloody thing on your screen was hunt for how to turn it off.
Yeah. So, final question. Do you know when Clippy finally got the bullet? When he was finally shuffled off?
Technically, 2007.
Technically?
Okay. I say technically. He was reissued. Might have been about a year later. He was resurrected as a sticker pack for Microsoft Teams in 2021. He didn't last long.
Good.
But he was resurrected. I think it was a joke, probably. They must have done it as a joke.
Well, there we go. There's a joke of the week. Clippy, the joke of the century. Actually, one final fact that you'll find interesting. Clippy features in Time magazine's 50 Worst Inventions Ever. And this is quite stunning. He's third on the list of 50.
Okay, so he's right up there.
Yeah, just below the new flavour of Coke. And just above Agent Orange, that horrible chemical they used to spray to defoliate Vietnam. Yeah, so that's how unpopular he was. He was more unpopular than Agent Orange. And with that, Angus, I'm gonna leave it and say cheers, Angus.
Cheers, Pete.
Thanks for tuning in to the Angus and Pete Show. Remember, it's based on the personal views and opinions of the hosts and their guests. If you're feeling aggrieved or litigious, take a chill pill. There's already enough stress in the world. Don't forget to follow our page on LinkedIn and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform for more episodes. We'll see you next time. Oh, and tell your friends.